The first hints of a conflict between Formula 1 title rivals Ferrari and Red Bull have emerged after an amicable start to their title battle. Ferrari team boss Mattia Binotto has finally publicly aired a private concern that he will not understand if Red Bull is able to keep developing its car all season after so many upgrades at the start of the year. Red Bull hasn't exactly been focused entirely on itself either, as its own suspicions were aroused over Ferrari's actions at a recent tyre test. This title battle has taken place exclusively on track so far between Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen, but that's rarely sustainable in Formula 1, and now we have the first signs of growing tension. We're going to explore that in this video. If you like it, please give us a thumbs up to show your appreciation, leave a comment to have your say, and ring the bell to subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps us out. Ferrari's concern surrounds the budget cap and how each of the teams will manage their research and development spending within the $140 million base allowance for the season. The budget cap was new to F1 last year, which means this is the first season that teams have been developing a car under all new technical regulations with their spending restricted. Ferrari has barely changed its car since a new floor was introduced during pre-season testing, while Red Bull has introduced aerodynamic and weight-saving upgrades since new side pods and a new floor appeared at the second test. As a result, the RB18 has usurped the F175 and emerged as the faster car in each of the last two Grand Prix. Ferrari team boss Binotto has now made it clear his expectation is that Red Bull will have to stop developing sooner or later. Since testing, Binotto's mantra has been that Ferrari has to be careful with its upgrades because of the budget cap restrictions. After the Miami Grand Prix, he said Ferrari does not have the money to spend on upgrading the car constantly and having something new at every race. Binotto's comments triggered speculation in Italy that Red Bull has now spent a large part of its research budget. To that, Red Bull's motorsport advisor Helmut Marko responded by insisting there are no such concerns, and that the two teams are probably in a similar position. A simple comparison of how much each car has changed since the first test would indicate Red Bull has spent more money so far, and that unless it goes into a period without any upgrades, it will presumably run out of money to develop the car. That's without even incorporating the initial development work on 2023 that will also be taking place, as any money on that car spent in 2022 has to come out of this year's budget cap. But it's impossible to judge from the outside where the two teams will be within their respective allowances and how much they've spent so far in 2022. They are introducing new parts not only at different rates, but to different scales. For instance, the new package Ferrari has planned for this weekend's Spanish Grand Prix is likely to be grander than the lightweight parts Red Bull has spent money on to trim away a few kilos in recent weeks. And even if both had produced like-for-like upgrades, it would still not be an exact comparison, as different R&D and manufacturing processes mean that Red Bull and Ferrari would almost certainly be designing and producing parts at a different cost. Furthermore, Red Bull's argument seems to be that Ferrari's development budget will be impacted by unforeseen repair bills. That came from Marko, and he might have a point. Carlos Sainz has now crashed at Imola and in Miami, while Charles Leclerc damaged the floor at Imola. Marko has also asserted that the main issue Red Bull faces on the budget cap is increasing inflation, which impacts all the teams. And that chimes with comments from Red Bull team boss Christian Horner, who has admitted that continuous development is not possible. So that's the initial sign of conflict from Ferrari's side. But what of Red Bull? During the Miami weekend, it became clear that Red Bull was among the most interested in and annoyed by Ferrari's use of two different floors in a recent tyre test. Ferrari took part in a Pirelli test at Imola after the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Images emerged of the F175 running two different floors over the course of the day, which prompted speculation that Ferrari had been evaluating different components. F1 sporting regulations dictate that new car components cannot be used during tyre testing, stating that the cars at these tests must only use components of a specification that have been used in at least one race or test during the current championship year. To qualify as having been used at one race, the part must simply have been used on track at some point of an event, including practice sessions. The rules also prevent component changes during the test that give any sort of information to the competitor that is unrelated to the tyre test. Setup or component changes are only permitted when agreed in advance with Pirelli as part of the tyre evaluation procedure. This means a team is not permitted to back-to-back different component specifications to gather data for their own purposes, even if a component has been previously used. As a result, Ferrari's rivals challenged the FIA on whether Ferrari had broken the rules at Imola, and paddock whispers suggested that Red Bull was the most aggrieved. However, the FIA looked into the matter and determined that Ferrari had only changed components because the car suffered floor damage in the morning. And this isn't just Ferrari telling the FIA this after the fact, there would have been someone from the governing body on site at the test at the time. Horner accepted this during the Miami weekend, but his justification for the excitement, as he put it, around the Ferrari test was that the team appeared to have some new components. It was wrongly speculated that the floor Ferrari switched to was a development item that previously appeared in Australia. But Ferrari actually used an older specification of floor that had been used during the pre-season test in Bahrain. The updated floor from Australia was a packer that changed the shape of the diffuser and was run in Friday practice there. Ferrari is expected to introduce the real version of that development soon, along with other floor changes, but this had nothing to do with its component swap at the Imola test. Horner said this meant the floor complies with the regulations, and was happy that the FIA had conducted what he believed was necessary police work and due diligence. His concern was obvious. Red Bull was worried that Ferrari had found a way to turn the test into an aerodynamic evaluation or development test, which is not what the tyre tests are for. In the end, it became a non-story, but it was still a good example of the sort of paranoia that creeps into title fights. After all, claims and counterclaims between Red Bull and Mercedes over what each team was apparently doing or not doing with various components became a dominant theme of their rivalry last year. Speaking of last year, 2021 title rivals Mercedes and Red Bull were butting heads well before Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton collided so spectacularly at the British Grand Prix. So where the Red Bull and Ferrari rivalry goes from here is interesting. Will it deteriorate, or will the pally relationship that Red Bull has seemed keen to play up continue? Red Bull has really laid it on thick how much it's supposedly enjoying the battle with Ferrari this season after its 2021 fight with Mercedes became so toxic and the Horner-Toto Wolff feud seemed to become personal. For example, Horner said Binotto is a nice guy when asked about a comparison between this rivalry and his one with Wolff and Mercedes. Meanwhile, Marco has taken a few swipes at Hamilton's motivation and said that Ferrari is a much better rival for Red Bull because there was so many politics with Mercedes, which must be the first time anyone's ever suggested that Ferrari's not a political opponent. But the overt friendliness will fade as the stakes get higher. Even Horner admitted to that in Miami when he said it's going to boil over at some point. So far, Leclerc and Verstappen have kept it clean, although the same could be said for Verstappen and Hamilton after a few races in 2021. The 2022 battle likely needs a similar flashpoint for the Verstappen-Leclerc fight to ever get so dramatic, but as Horner indicated, it can also be escalated off track. A potential development row seems the likeliest avenue for that, especially as Red Bull has not given any indication it's poised to cease the development in the short term. Further weight-saving new parts are expected this weekend in Spain, and Horner has promised some development coming in the summer. That's not necessarily directly relevant to what Binotto has talked about because his concern will only play out longer term, for Red Bull will have long since committed to the spending on its imminent upgrades. But the fact that Binotto has finally made quite strongly a public observation on Red Bull's development rate is significant for two reasons. It means a specific concern exists, which creates a point of public disagreement, and it immediately increases the scrutiny on how many new parts Red Bull introduces from now on and how often they appear. So every Red Bull upgrade will now be accompanied by questions about what that means for development. And in the wake of Red Bull being one of the teams that was most curious with the intrigue into Ferrari's floor change at that tyre test, it confirms that the tension in the title battle is gently increasing on both sides. The Ferrari and Red Bull squabbling is still small fry for now compared to last year's animosity, but it's no longer completely absent, and it may not take much for it to escalate from here.